Okay, finally. All right, it took a little time to get online here, but wait a couple of minutes to make sure that people are coming. Again, I want to thank everyone that's adding on. I'm gonna go over through some things. A lot of plus lessons. I want to go through a very simple one. And for everyone that asked about last session, the word is bond plus lesson. I feel in my mind, I feel like I missed something in there. So I just couldn't pull the trigger with emailing it. The conclusion is not complete. I'm going to fix the conclusion. And there may be some more exercise I add into the exercise phase. In other words, of how to promote and how to activate the word is bond. Again, man, I see the word is bond as that active activity, man. Everything that we do is our extensions of the word is bond. You say that you're the true and living God. This is an extension of the word is bond. Every single step that you take in your life. So it's important that you have, everything there. You know what I mean? Word is bond. You started out with training. How much will you train? How much will you read? How much will you write? Again, these coincide with other plus lessons I gave, like the build awareness square, the BAT plus lesson, right? Where you're building your awareness of your square, right? That's why I called it BAT plus lesson, right? It affects how you eat, right? Because you're saying word is bond. I'm going to eat the proper foods, going to eat the healthiest foods. I'm not going to overeat, things like that, right? And then it's hard, right? Because sometimes the word is bond to yourself is the most difficult because you will do certain things that you won't do, etc., etc., right? Let me know if everyone that when people finally start to come in, let me know if you can hear me properly. I feel like my connection is not good today. It's not good today. I've tried it a couple of times. I don't know if it's proper now. So, all right. So the last couple of sessions, I'm starting to label the classes so you could go back a little bit easier to find what you're looking for. Word is bond plus lesson, the build awareness square plus lesson. I did it before. Again, if anybody wants me to do them again, all you have to do is ask me, and I'll do it again. What else? The justice build, another important plus lesson. So the word is bond is affected by everything you do, how you eat, how you train, right? These are words that you give yourself. You're not just telling them, and this is why the word is bond. I think certain things should be kept to yourself. I think that it is more difficult to keep your word is bond to do certain things when you don't tell anyone than when you tell other people, because now you're doing it. You want to save face, you know what I mean? You don't want to look bad in front of anybody else. You said you were going to train. You said you were going to eat these foods. You said you weren't going to eat those sugary foods, whatever it is, right? So keeping the word is bond to yourself when no one's really going to know that you said this word is bond to yourself, and no one will even know you broke it. These are the hardest ones, and these are the ones that need practice, and it's, again, this is something that needs to be added. The word is bond to the self is the most difficult one. It's the mastering the unseen. We talk about the unseen this, unseen that. The unseen is this conversation that is going on here, I think it was because I had the honor of editing all of Starmel's Righteous Way books, the trilogy. And the heaviest one is the last one. And I don't think it's in the last one, though. I guess I'm just messing that, man. But in one of them, either the second or the third one, there's only three. It's a trilogy. There is a really, really great build. And it's something that I see and really concentrate on, but he wrote about it overtly. And I don't think I may have mentioned it sometimes over the years building, but I don't think that I ever wrote about it. And he wrote about the quality of the conversation that you have internally. How do you speak to yourself? You know, if we make a mistake, do we go, "Oh man, damn, you're always messing up, you effing jerk," this and that. How do we speak to ourselves? What's the inner communication like? You know what I mean? We keep telling everybody that we're the true and living God. We expect to be greeted as God, people to bear witness that we're the true and living God. Do we speak to ourselves that way? Is that really the quality of our inner communication? You know, I don't think so always. So this is where the word is bond is important. How you eat, how you train, what you read, right? Are you studying enough? What you write, how you share with others. Sometimes we tell ourselves we're going to share with others. This is the thing. You get knowledge though, like you really, if you learned it with the elders and you visit the elders daily, like I just saw Hashim, one of the elders that was with the father when he was at the mosque and left with him when he left the mosque. The God is like, what is it? Build cipher? Almost no, nearly in his build ciphers, nearly, and he looks amazing. And like he said, I'm his baby brother. But the thing about it, right? The thing about it is that we get when you learn with the elders. This is really their culture. Like we talk about what the culture is, right? Keeping your word is bond, all that. But a lot of the culture is then what do we keep our word is bond to? We construct the culture by keeping our word is bond to certain things. Okay. So unlike others, though, the culture doesn't really fluctuate away from the principle. It fluctuates and adds on tremendously, but it doesn't fluctuate from the principle. Okay. It doesn't fluctuate the principle. And this is why, like, we talked a lot about Saladin and the bullshit that he's doing, and people sent me how he was trying to copyright Invisible Renaissance. And I appreciate the God stuff I build. It's hard to copyright something that is published already. You know what I mean? It's really hard to take that away. But there's neither here nor there. Like this is not what we do as the 5%. So here's the thing, right? We have to respect our elders. And the way we respect our elders is that when we see that what we're doing has a lot of controversy, right? Stop thinking that you're right. You know what I mean? Appreciate that the elders have lived with this knowledge a long time and through different, even if you don't want to admit that the conditions were worse, they survived through different conditions that were uniquely hellish, And so even if you think that you're going through something rougher, that they had it easy, which is crazy to me if you think that, you definitely have to see that they lived it differently. So you would say, I'm going to give up 2 examples, right? Let's say we had the City of Gods concert, right? A lot of the elders, they weren't really into hip hop, man. You know what I mean? They're really not into it. And if you look at it from the outside, I can't understand how, when you look at the way rap turns out, like with all the streets and the way it's just like, you don't even see the way it really is. So I could see that a lot of people would have difficulty with, right? So when they had their gripes about it, me and If Mega, Born King, we did what we always do. We were going to be steadfast in the need for this because we live the culture. We actually do this stuff, hip hop, But we also were going to listen to our elders sincerely. Like they might have an angle, you know what I mean? And it was one thing, like, if they had listened, if a lot of the artists, though, some of the artists that were like, yelling out things, I'm not going to go through it. They were yelling out things that to the average person, it don't really it don't sound like us and it don't represent us though. So like if they hear lyrics that definitely don't sound like something we would say and they're 85ers, that's a good thing because it means that as far as the 85 noticing like, yo, the gods is not about that type of talk. Why are we hearing music blasting being made like that out there? Right? So it contrasts with a already positive reality. And people keep thinking like the gods, out there, this and that. It wasn't out there. Why would people say it was a contrast to it? You see? And the same thing goes for like the pettiness that he was doing with that, what Big Head Scientist was doing. Right? He was told, like, check with your elders. They don't reinvent the wheel. Like, he decided to reinvent the wheel. He decided to reinvent the wheel. The reason I'm saying all this is that the word is bond is also a thing of communication. Sometimes the word is bond, if you find this is stuff I got to add into the plus lesson. When the word is bond is not really held, you have to go reach out to somebody. Let's say if you have your word is bond and you've proven to yourself that, man, this is a good thing I'm doing. I'm giving my word to. Why isn't this working? Then you got to build whoever's your elder. For a lot of people, I'm that older God. You know what I mean? That's crazy. I can't even say it. I flinch when I say that. Because peace of God. Peace, God.
Peace. I'll tell you about it later.
That's peace, God. Indeed, God. Indeed. But I don't think that when we talk about the people 20 miles away from the holy city of Mecca, I think it's as simple as that. They're just not around elders to pitch things to. You got to understand that when you get knowledge of yourself, you live in a very revolutionary life. It is a revolution compared to everyone else. And you got to see like how maybe the things I'm doing is different than anybody that I've ever known. It certainly is from your family. So if you decide to take a course of action that you think is going to be beneficial to yourself and or others, but it doesn't seem to work out, causes more headache, causes more clash, this is where you got to build with the older guys. To me, that's the main thing. That's the main thing. It's not that people's learning this wrong. It's that people don't really have those elders. Peace, God. They don't have these elders to tell them. And again, reinventing the wheel. Like we really be thinking that older guys haven't been through everything. They may not do it as dope as you, or doing something as grand as you. But they've been through it. So you got to respect that, And this is really the pitfall that we have because now when we get to the point where we hear elders and when they build with us, maybe they bomb us, maybe they show us, and then we still don't take heed. But then that's now on you, That's now on you. But listen, as I go along today, I'm going to be here until about 8:10, the latest, 8:10, okay? I'll be here until 8:10, so I'm here for another like 50, little less than 50 minutes. So we're going to go through some plus lessons. I'm trying to catch everybody up overtly on all of the old ones. I want to get people's questions about any of the ones that I built on before. Any questions? God, if you have any questions, just interrupt. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So I'm talking about last week. I went through the word is bond plus lesson. I don't know if you saw last week's session, right? So last week I went through a plus lesson. I called the word is bond plus lesson. And because it was the knowledge add-on cipher day, and then the next day was knowledge, and the 11th degree and the 1 to 14th word is bond, I figured it'd be timely to do it. But I'm also reiterating that I haven't sent them out because I want to add certain things to it, right? At the same time, I'm trying to show right now that all the plus lessons kind of bob and weave together. They kind of merge together, right? The build awareness square. You're always checking on what you're eating, training, writing, reading, writing, and how you're sharing. This is important. A lot, that's sharing one in that plus lesson When I put that one last was because the way I was taught, after I learned something that was profound, I was nearly immediately learning and being taught um, how to apply it, how to teach it, how to share it. Like God would teach me something, right, God? And then because I wouldn't go, I would stay here all day, God. I'll be all day. After a while, if they left and they came back, or if I was rolling with them, we do some things, right? Because I had adventures with different elders every time. I would be here, and I was like, oh, Infinite Al Jamal's here, so it's gonna be I'm gonna be with him all day. It could be little things. So we're walking to the store, we're coming back. We might walk to the park, just take a walk. Whatever he's doing, I'm just doing it with him. I'm just doing it with him. I'm just hanging with him. Because we hang with him, he's seeing different things and building with me about different things. If it was other guys like Firstborn Prince and stuff, because they were always in this neighborhood, particularly, then I was seeing different things and how they engage the community and shit, you know? So, like, when we had issues with the Moors and they were talking shit, because a lot of Moors at the time, right? There's some Moors that's real peace, though. And I met him. Met him, you know? Um, but a lot of the Moors that was hanging around this area, some of them were saying that the brown and the yellow wasn't original. And then they were saying that black, of course, they say that black is not, they don't bear witness to using the term black. So now, just logically, God, we would have an impasse about the way we're communicating because we're not even using the same language, though. We're talking in different things. But then they would say things like, oh, you're not original. They would have like these nitpicking things. And, we were like black, brown, yellow. Don't even make it confusing. Right? But they're like, nah, you're a little too. Yeah, they would really have these markers, though, some of them. And from what I learned from other Moors is that they was poorly educated. You know what I mean? That's why I learned not to take it like assume of people's, because a lot of Moors I met after that were real builders like Sharif. You know what I mean? One of the great martial artists I've ever seen in this day and time. And when I built, I was gonna show him the NYP talk show with the God Supreme, and we was building and we was so in tune. So it's like we came to a lot of the same conclusions, about the understanding of things just in life, right? But I would be on different little tours with all the other guards and stuff, whoever was here, or I'd just be hanging out all day with them. And so since they taught me a lesson, they were smart. They didn't just overload me. They would come back and try to always stay focused on the build. You didn't see it. They didn't write anything on the board, nothing. But for some reason, that whole day, they kept to a theme with me. And a lot of times, some of them, like, they would ask me, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'll tell them what I'm doing, this and that. You know what I mean? And at the time, like when I was getting the knowledge, I was just a freelance writer. That was really how I was making like moves, like my personal moves. I was working in a publishing firm, but then the thing I love to do, I was just doing freelance magazines, right? 5 XXL shit, and then other magazines that I was getting into, because I was trying to do everything, go everywhere. Because at the time there was a lot of little magazines coming up on the come up, and so getting their perspective. Sometimes I would get the same lesson, like the same theme, but hear it different ways, with some disagreements, some add-ons. But then I would see, look, this is why he disagrees with this. I kind of agree with both, but I understand why they disagree. Like, you know what I'm saying? You see all these angles and stuff. Then you realize that, decisions that we thinking are much more nuanced. And what I learned was like with the word is bond, when you try, the hardest word is bond, I said, is for yourself. And when you're having trouble doing something right and exact, but the word is bond is not happening, that's when you build with the gods. Because like the Confucius used to say, don't always leap toward getting rid of the task if you can't do it. Like, oh, I can't do it, man. I'm just gonna X this off the board. I'm not doing it. It's too hard. I can't do it. Or it's unrealistic to even do it. He would say, change the approach, or the angle. So like, let's say, I don't know, let's say like, I'll say stuff. I always have goals, right? So let's say we say I'm gonna start writing 10 journal pages, right? But the only day that you see you have time is Sunday. But for some reason, it's hard for you to write. You're starting, and you're like, man, 10 pages is a lot, man, and I never get through it on Sunday. And the most I got through was 7, right? So I never really get the week done with 10 pages. So then now, like, I gave one that's obvious with the answer, right? Yo, try to see if you could maybe do one, add maybe one, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So by the time Sunday comes, maybe you got 4 or 5 in the bag, and then the 5 that are left is not so hard. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't get rid of the task, but we tried to rearrange it, come up with a different plan. You know what I mean? This is stuff that Confucius used to talk about. You know what I mean? So this is what I'm saying. Like, when you give your word as bond, it doesn't mean that, some people, they give their word as bond to themselves, the hardest one there is, because nobody's going to tell you failed. You know what I mean? And it's the best one because you could experiment with great achievements. You know what I'm saying? Great achievements. You could experiment with great achievements, and you can also find your threshold. Like if you're working out, man, give yourself a good goals. Give yourself good goals. You never did weightlifting? Yo, get the proper form and go as heavy as you can without your form being horrible. You know what I'm saying? And it may not be the number you expect. Like you said, damn, I thought I could lift more than this, though. But then start think about it like, yo, at the end of the day, your muscles is gonna grow because what you lifted that day, it was hard as hell. So you already tore shit. It don't matter about the number. It was hard, and you did the reps right. So, and can you be consistent? Can you come back again and do it now? So, like, we might look down on ourselves, but the word is bond is something to keep challenging. You need to look at the word is bond as like, I need to challenge myself. You know what I'm saying? I need to challenge myself. So when you look at the word is bond, I need people to look at it as like a personal challenge. It isn't, it's also a deterrent from what's wrong, right? Let's say if we have a bad speech within ourselves, we make a mistake, we're like, you bastard, you son of a bitch. Like we talk to ourselves that way. We're the true and living God, right? And think about it. If we mess up, let's say we were a woman that's really into us, she would never talk to us that way if we messed up something. But we'll talk to ourselves that way. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do we talk hard to ourselves where we're like, we're hard on ourselves, but not where we're like deprecating ourselves, really, really digging in and feeling like, because if you say to yourself, man, I always ruin everything, you're going to be that person. You're going to be that person. It's going to internalize, You're going to internalize that. So that's one of the words and bonds we should always have. Like, always take note. And it links with the build awareness square because you're aware of how you're doing the knowledge, how you're sharing, and how you're sharing with yourself. How you speak to yourself is how you immediately share with yourself. That's a sharing. How are you speaking to yourself? Right? Are you hard on yourself? Good. But are you like, yo, we gotta do better. We gotta do better. We gotta do better with this. You know what I mean? How do you speak to yourself? This is very important because we expect the world to bear witness that we're the true and living God. That means we're asking them to bear witness that we're a supreme being. They bear witness that we're a supreme being. It means that you gotta speak to yourself like you're the supreme being. Like you expect excellence, you expect greatness, and you also are like, yo, but it's something to work towards and work in. Meaning that when you hit that excellence, you also stay within it though. You continue to achieve the goal, So these are things that are very crucial in the Word is Bond Plus lesson. So this weekend, I'm definitely going to email them out to everybody that emails me. God, I get you. And any of the other plus lessons, the Build Awareness Squared, the Justice Curriculum, like what are we going through when we look at a degree? These are things to continually look back as we go into the degrees, okay? Devon, you said if someone doesn't have access to 120 degrees, do you think it's a problem to just read Supreme Wisdom? If you're reading Supreme Wisdom, you're reading what Nation of Islam has, and there's going to be slight changes though. I'm never one to say that reading anything is forbidden, though. That's not really what I'm about. But I will tell you that certain things that you read, acknowledge that you may be not ready for it. Like you just may not get much out of it. So you have to really condition yourself that as if you read 120 and you don't have it yet, like you haven't acknowledged it. I'm assuming this is what you mean, that you haven't acknowledged 120, but you read all of 120. Certainly there's a problem if you read it just from the Nation of Islam Supreme Wisdom, because that format is different. And you don't have the things that the Father put to it. So I definitely would find it to be a problem of some sort. What I would say is this, though, is try to read it, but let go. If you're not ready to read that way, then you're not ready to look through it. Read and let go, because your assumptions will hinder you. Okay? Your assumptions will hinder you with it. And that's why it's not really necessary. Yo, when I was knowledge in 120, I had access to read the whole thing. You know? Even when I memorized the 1 to 40, yo, I literally didn't read any of the degrees. I didn't read them until I got to it. And it helped me 2 ways. I don't know if it helped me let go of things, because I was used to reading books that may have been too heavy. And then I said, oh, it's too heavy. Let me put it aside. Because that's how I figured out what books I was reading. So I was okay with putting things aside if it was too heavy. And then letting what I thought about the information that I already took in that was too heavy, and let it go. You know, I don't really understand that shit. So I'm going to leave it here because it happens. You know what I'm saying? You're going to read things. Like I got books. I'm like, damn, I don't, you know. And there are books to this day that I'm reading slowly and get a little bit extra every year, but a lot of it I don't, you know? So I'm hard. I tell you guys to read African Origin and Civilization by Cheikh Diop. Cheikh Diop is not an easy writer. So that's a book that, easy writer. So very scholarly, very technical. So every time you revisit the book, you're going to get something new. Because he didn't write for the lay person, not even like a lay professional, like college educated. You know, he wrote for the field. He was challenging the field. When he wrote African Origin and Civilization, he was trying to show and prove the black man is the father of civilization. And I'm showing it to these white scholars, you know? Definitive shit, you know? So what I would say, it helped me when I didn't read the degrees like that. Of course, some of them were familiar when I got to them because I would hear God's quote them and quote parts, you know, when they build, right? I'm here for months and months, so I'm hearing all the degrees, you know what I mean? But because we only have months that go up to 31, a lot of the ones at the end I didn't, were very new. You know, 33, 34. They were somewhat familiar, like the famous ones. Allah's God on earth and heaven buzz, and it's just a truth for there's no one righteousness in him. You know what I mean? But others were like, you know, totally new. I think it helped me, not because I didn't see it so much. I can't really say because I was around the God's quoting so much of it. But it definitely helped me, give me a hunger to get to it, you know? And it was different because when I was on a 140, I was with Knowledge Me a lot, my enlightenment. I was with him a lot. So he would ask me where I was up to all the time. And he would build on those degrees. So I was getting like up-to-date add-ons about each degree. You know what I mean? And then other guys I was with, like him and Savior Knowledge, they would teach me how to teach at the school. So they would tell me like, yo, you know, with these degrees, you want to get into this. They would teach me. They would teach me how to teach, you know? So, and like Savior and Knowledge Me, they really prepped me to be in the classroom, not just like teaching outside. It was prepping me to be in here, you know? So it was a little different than most people, you know? Piece of 793rd. So it was different than most people, but I think it had a benefit. If you're too curious, though, yo, read the whole thing, but don't assume that you know what it means, though, and don't assume that some of the things that make sense don't have deeper meanings. And also, of course, always assume that you might be looking into things too far on certain things, and they really not that deep. You know, sometimes people be building on degrees and like, yo, it's really not that deep. When we got 120 in the beginning, we used to try to build mad deep. Like I used to try to have whole builds on yes, sir, you know, because it links up with the wisdom, and that's the victory. When you have victorious, yes, sir, you know, like trying to go in on everything, and it really wasn't that crazy like that, you know. It really wasn't that crazy, you know. But it's in the classroom, you know, and you're supposed to experiment. Like you're supposed to go, yo, students, like I'm looking at this degree. Does this degree is possible? This could be an understanding based in this degree, and I'll be like, nah, you might be fishing on that one, you know. But a lot of times I'm like, yo, I like the mindset that you're looking at the degree, you know. Mighty, but these kind of things are good because they point out things like, yo, you might be in need of a particular piece of information that I hadn't given you. And if you didn't ask or propose something, we won't get there. So like the way you learn is always directed by you. You know what I mean?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there's something about the lesson about 32-degree freeze? Because one guy asked me how old I was, and I was like 32, and he said something about 32 degrees freezing. Now, what does that mean?
That has to do more with linking the 32 degrees. You know, the freezing temperature.
What does that mean?
So like a lot of gods build with it different, but it doesn't have to do with a particular degree. It just has to do with the mathematics, though. You know, so like what temperature does it have to snow? Right, it's 32 degrees. Right, it has to be at a certain temperature for right to be ice, to be frozen, to be snow. Right. So they say like, yo, you know, when you reach a level where you're not really writing exact, your understanding is not in the wisdom, like it's not flowing. You know what I mean? You're frozen. You know, so that's what they would do. It's just not. It's just a phrase and a build. It's not necessarily something that, like, yo, it's got a definitive build. It's really interpretation. You know, that's why, like the way I would see it, then I would see it differently than other gods. You know what I mean? Me personally, I never really would look at things that way of like frozen and things like that. I understood when the gods do it though. You know what I mean? But it has to do with like when your understanding is not really there. You know what I mean? And that might because what understanding wisdom, right? Your understanding is not really being projected properly. You're not able to speak your understanding, right? So even if you may or may not, I will never know. You know what I'm saying? It's frozen, right? So they would use that phrase though to express that. You know what I mean? But it doesn't necessarily, have a particular degree that it aligns to. You know, of course, we're talking to Dumar Wadi. Remembered imperfection. That guy always had like builds to link up with everything. Like I always remember his build on the square mileage of the planet Earth, approximately 25,000, 24,896. Those numbers, he would deal with every single number, and it was like a long build. Because he would make these plus lessons, all builds, and he would teach them. Like I saw him pull one out and teach it in the class. Like we sat down and we just did the knowledge. So it depends how far you go with how you mix and match and put together the degrees. But it's always to the point, like, what is understanding? Understanding is when you have a body of information that is absolutely right and exact, and it produces an insight, right? That is unique to the way you're experiencing your life. That's why it's a knowledge that is wisdom. It is used by you, right? That's why the wisdom is experienced. When it is used, then it has an understanding though. It's unique to you and your experience, We only have understandings that's similar to others because we have similar experiences. And certainly we got now ourselves similar mentalities. You know what I'm saying? Right? But that's where that comes in. You know what I mean? All right. So there, peace to God AG. So I got like a little less than a half hour here, right? I'm gonna go through this plus lesson, and again, if you don't have the plus lessons, email me. I will email them the ones that I'm using, building, and these are all plus lessons that I'm using in the classroom. That I'm still figuring out some way also to make some lessons, but it involves that you do homework. So maybe it's something that you could just do personally with me. But certain classic plus lessons, ones that I didn't write, these are ones that I wrote. Certain plus lessons that I wrote that I didn't write, but that I have, I'm scanning them, you know, so I'm putting them together and scanning them. And like one international teacher, I just scanned the Great Understanding. So if people don't have those and they haven't read those, you know, and they want to build on them and just want to read those, you know what I'm saying? Email me too, and I'll send you those. When people are ready for certain plus lessons, then I give it to them. You know what I'm saying? So certain plus lessons, you know. And as we go along, there's a whole bunch. Like I got like a giant box filled with them. Plus lessons from other gods, you know, elders. Yeah.
They just gave it to you?
I earned them. I earned them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I earned them. And I just kept collecting and stuff. See, also too, right? I didn't have to go through a lot of hell. I just had to build. Just be a good student. Because when a lot of gods, like I always tell people, right? On my hand, I could count how much clothing I have that has the flag on it. You know what I mean? I probably had like 2 or 3 T-shirts. Yo, and we have to separate. If I take away everything the older God, remember the perfection Dr. Janelle used to make. He used to make his own clothes with the flag on it, right? But he would make clothes, God, that will only be my size. Not too many gods. It's 5'4". You know what I'm saying? Like, and then he would make it. But not only that, God, he would make clothes and put my name on it, God. So I'm like, nah, I don't really want it. Nah, it says Sunyas. Like, so he would make me like a dress shirt that says Sunyas Allah all over. Like, you know, boom, 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 everywhere. It was kind of fly, but it was like if I didn't want it, what, you know, I had to. So I was always supporting. You know what I mean? Man, he had made me a leather though with the universal flag on the back. Man, that one got lost though. You know, like I said, I got 2 baby mamas though, so certain things get lost. You know what I mean? And they're shuffling.
Name on it too,
you know, nah, that one didn't have my name on it. I would have fought harder though. You know what I mean? But to find it though, but it just got lost. You know what I mean? Whatever. Yeah, this shit happens though, man. But he would make me all these things, like he would make me hats, all of that. You know what I mean? But when I went to Parliament, I wasn't really going there for clothes, for show and prove. I almost never got clothes. Like I went to show and prove the last show and prove the year before. God was showing me so much love. They gave me hats, shirts, everything. But I never really buy hats and shirts. You know what I mean? Right? When I used to go there, I used to go with the elders and buy the books that they were selling. Saving Knowledge brought Sekou. Sekou was a real scholar. They would sell black books, all the history books, all of that, everything, right? I would buy a book there. I would literally save my money because I would blow a lot of money at these parliaments, but they were never on close. I'd be buying like 2 books, you know, thick joints, Ivan Van Sertima books, you know, all these books, right? That they haven't reprinted yet. And by the way, if you want some of the Ivan Van Sertima, I have them on PDF. So if you don't have them and you want them, I got them. But then Infinite Al Jamar had a table where he would do his, and he used to do a publication called Black Family, the Black Family. And he would have these builds. He also had this great plus lesson about the universe and the black woman. You know what I mean? And I would buy that, had that on cassette. Of course, that shit got lost. You know what I mean? But I'm pretty sure I have the written version of that in the vault. You know what I mean? But the thing was that Dumar, I would buy his he called him the national statement, his national statement. So, because he was the national spokesperson, like he was the one that represented us when we went to different places, right? I would buy his latest one, right? He's charged $3 plus lesson, you know, and he would have all of that. And he would always go to me because, you know, I would buy him. And I would have to go through him and say, nah, I got that. I would have to have a good memory because he had sold me so many, God, that I had to be like, nah, I got that one. Because after a while, I was buying ones and go back home and say, oh shit, I had this one already. And I was repeat buying, and I was like, yo, I need to start writing down, make a little list, because he's gonna be making money off me like crazy if I don't remember which ones I bought. You know? Because if when in doubt, I would buy it again. That's how much I cared about this knowledge. right? So after a while, more classic plus lessons, gods would just give them to me. They wouldn't sell them; they just give them to me. You know what I mean? A lot of these old publications would put them. Son of Man, you had the Son of Man with Jai Key. You had the five power paper with Colleen was doing the power paper, right? I would buy all of these things. You know what I mean? So I was always buying the literature that the gods had. That's what I cared about, you know, as a writer, but also as a learner. You know what I mean? So that's why I have this big thing, you know, and I had it for a long time. You know what I mean? Like it's in a big diaper box. My youngest kid is 11, so this is a long time ago, and that's from my first kid. So he's 23, so I had him a long time, that box. So it's got tape everywhere, all over, holding it together, everything. But they survived. They're in good shape. They're in great shape. You know what I mean? So I'm sending people pluses that I'm doing now, but then also the other one. So I'm going to go through this one because it's very important. The justice, it's a good one, and it's just a quick one. It's an easier one, but it's something to take note of because we tend to get stuck in our studies. And I think that with all the research devices we have, and now you have to include, if you're learning with me here, just watching or directly with me, speaking to me and building, or through the email, you have to see that you have a library at hand. I have a 7,000 book collection, digital. So if you need books and you need to start getting the research, you got to be tapping in. You got to be like Sunnis. I need books on this, that, and the other, you know? And I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them to you, you know? Just continue to remind me because I know there's somebody that asked me about some type of, I think they asked me about Puerto Rican history and what I had about a specific thing in there. I don't know if I had, but there were books I had that had essays about that topic. Not necessarily a whole book about it, but I got lost to who it was. So if you don't email me sometimes, I lose track of who's asking. You know what I mean? Of who's asking. But other than that, you know what we do. But I'm gonna go through this one, the justice curriculum. That's the one that I have here. I want to go through this one because I think this is one that will get people to be all around. So you got the build awareness square. You're taking now, doing the knowledge to everything you're doing. But the justice curriculum is kind of looking at your, what am I not studying? What's not strong on the subjects of life, right? So you got the intro to this. The justice curriculum is the study of many disciplines does not make man righteous, yet it greatly propels the ease by which they may realize themselves as such and build greater. Just as the most oppressive societies have fortified themselves with the study of many disciplines, our study of a versatile curriculum would develop our framework of ideas, potential, self-awareness. The following 10 subject areas are beginning in this broad range of study that are necessities of culture. Okay, so the first one, it's only 10. It's called justice because it's only 10. First one is hygiene. In a supposedly civilized, advanced society, hygiene is often at its lowest. Possible reason for that, aside from the awkward change it is for the Caucasian westernized world, is that we do not view it as a constant study. We may adapt certain measures if they come to us or flow with social norms. If say someone properly uses a tissue to open the bathroom door that reeks with diverse fecal matter particles. However, we must continue to constantly protect ourselves from the environment through developing awareness and knowledge of hygienic practices and study to fortify the home with less chemical pollutants and cleaner rituals. Let me give you an example, right? We know that nobody, generally Americans, especially the graphic, they did not get cleaner after all this COVID. All this COVID, they still dirty, right? It don't even matter. But when you start to study things, like there was a couple of years where I figured I had my diet honed in and I didn't study extra things about the diet because I knew what was wrong. And then I realized that a lot of the people I was teaching were steeped in the wrong diets and with all new ideas about what's wrong, new products that are right, that are wrong and incorrect. Since I'm not in the loop, I'm not really studying to see why those things are wrong either. Right? So when you start to study things wrong, you learn much more. So one of the main things I learned during the COVID era was this concept of germs and the way germs slowly became the way that the Western world started to look at disease. So it became a thing where like they just build you up It's okay to be around germs as long as you're strong. Build up your immune system. It then shifted to germs and being wary of germs. Because remember, the white man never knew that germs existed. When they found that out, the goal was to kill it all. You know this, right? Household products, right? Everything is kill germs, kill this. But we know that they're having pollutants that might affect us too, right? For example, like bleaches and things. You just can't be around these things, right? You can't just be like, oh, it's fine, yeah. It has an effect on you. Yeah, they chemicals, they affect you. You know what I mean? So they have levels of toxicity. And the way we work today, we don't think that they have toxicity unless we drop dead immediately. That's not how it works. And toxicity is a slow thing. Just like nobody smokes one cigarette and gets cancer and gets lung cancer the next day. It's never happened. Like, it doesn't happen. It's slow accumulation. Toxicity is a slow burn. You know? It's funny that we respect it with, let's say, cigarettes, but we don't respect it with, let's say, a clean device because we think a clean device is killing the germs. You know what I'm saying? You know? When I was a kid, we had to put the roach bomb. We had to take a walk like the whole evening. Maybe we go to McDonald's or something. This is what we do when we was young. Walk to McDonald's and eat our meal, and then like maybe an hour later and stuff, hour or two later, we come back and the bomb will be done. We'll have dispersed. You know what I mean? Right? Because the windows can't be open. You want the roaches to suffocate. And I'd come back home to floors filled with roaches everywhere. We got to get a broom and just sweep them. You know what I mean? That's how it was. And it's like those things were really serious chemicals. You know what I mean? Serious chemicals, you know? So if you're not studying hygiene again and again, you may not be doing the knowledge. Always have the principle that even if you get the right thing going, that the devil continues daily to do this devilishment. To come up with new ways, you got to be up on new ways. So that's just what I have to say about that. So hygiene is a thing that you have to constantly be vigilant to, but also it's something to study. It is a study. We continue to be as clean, as pure, as detoxed as we can. So it's something to always be studying. You know what I mean? Right? All right. The second is music. Okay. I said, while we may enjoy the latest pop craze and shuffle 500 ditties on our iPod, this is an old plus list. This is for like 2003. I wrote iPod. Music is a language of resistance and expression that our people oppressed the last 6,000 plus years have developed wonderfully. To love music is to learn of it, to expand the palette of sounds we hear also broadens the ability to hear and develop new ideas. In the societies we live in with so many original people from all over the world, we ought to know these other languages they have expressed themselves with beyond the radio's narrow dialect. In New York City, we have at least the so-called Dominican merengue, bachata, Puerto Rican salsa, bomba plena, Cuban son, Jamaican roots reggae, the so-called African-American soul music, jazz, and for all these original people, the most lyrically expressive musical genre to date, hip-hop music, okay? So the reason I say music is that, especially when you're dealing with the young, treat music like a palette, though. Expand their palette, though. Let them listen to the Rakims, the Donny Hathaways, Miles Davis, Johnny Ventura, Willie Colon, Bob Marley's. Treat the young child as you should treat yourself if you haven't listened to music this way. But definitely with the young child, treat their ears like a palette of sound. Give them different sounds. You know what I mean? It's good for their palate. Okay? All right, might be outdated, so I might have to update the perspective. But the third one is news. That's not outdated, the concept, but the way I explained it might be outdated. I wrote, from the politics of your immediate residential area to the world stage, we must seek out legitimate news sources and study them. That still is relevant. We must know more than the paltry 15-minute broadcast at 11 p.m. of tabloid specials. People don't even watch that, so it's outdated. You know what I mean? This is one of the ways to understand the people we love and seek to build with. What I would add on to that, though, is it isn't just don't get caught up in the universe of right wing, left wing. You know what I mean? Don't be thinking because you're on MSNBC you're getting it the right way. You're not. You're getting it the wrong way if you're stuck on either side. You know, the truth is that the best news is going to be outside those frameworks of left wing, right wing. You know, where they give you just the truth of what was happening. Okay. And there's a lot of good sources. Chris Hedges, The Gray Zone, Democracy Now! Has some good stuff, even though I don't like the way they cover vaccines and stuff. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys. Bad Faith, the sister has good stuff there. If you're looking for like analysis of the party structure, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff that's in there. You know what I mean? And more. I could give a whole bunch, but I never listen to regular news outlets. Never. You know, I just totally ignore them. You know, that's peace stuff I build. Yeah, you know, and I got much more. That was just a little bit. It was just a little bit. You know, I didn't even give you the salsa, the merengue, I didn't even give you the South American genres. Like, it's crazy. The amount of palettes. Like, there's music genres that I thought were whack that when I studied them and found the real exponents of the genre, I was like, man, this is dope. You know? So sometimes what they tell you is the guy is not the guy. Just like, you know, we would tell somebody, don't trust the radio. That ain't where you're gonna get the hip hop. It's the same thing with almost all the genres, though. All the genres. It's just that hip hop is the most commercialized and most abused out of all of them. You know what I mean? But others have just been abused just as, you know, and on different levels, I would say. Different levels. You know? So we got number 4, right? This is self-explanatory as far as subjects to study, but science. Science of biochemistry, right? Quantum mechanics, mathematics are key to a knowledge of self. Working to study sciences slowly and usefully will always give more sense to the universe we have created. This is a study of our inner workings. You know, how can we not study this daily? So I got you, God. I got you. You know what I mean? I gotta do all the Caribbean, the reggae, all of that. You know what I mean? 5, health. The diet is something, and this links with hygiene. The diet is something that constantly go from the inner to the outer. I made some grammar mistakes here. If the proposed healthier lifestyle is adopted, a vegan living foods diet is what I always propose here. What I show you, you take your best part of it, right? Because look, I teach you a vegan living foods diet, but even if you decide not to live that, you now know the diet to use when you have to detox. If you're getting sick, you're gonna have to get there anyway. You're gonna have to know it. You know what I mean? That's what I embraced, and one can no longer eat ignorantly. So if you decide to be vegan, just a note about veganism and living foods diet. You decide to do that, you're gonna have to really know what you're doing. Okay, you can't just haphazardly eat. People that eat beef and meat and dairy, right? They're getting protein and nutrients by default. It's the other things that they're accumulating that are bad. But they don't have to do much research in saying, do I get all my protein? Because it's very packed. You know, it's very effective, but it also has its consequences long term. You know what I mean? This is why I never advocated. But in this mindset of digging deeper into how you eat, one must be a student of ingredients, preparation, recipes. We must learn what things we may be putting in our body, how to prepare them, so that we may have supreme control and learn to express ourselves through our food with recipes that make food taste great to us. I'm going to go through the Living Proofs protocol updated, maybe next week. Depends how fast I do it, okay? 6 is training. The Living Foods protocol, I'm going to link it and have a short training protocol too at the bottom. Okay, decided to add that too. The training that one chooses must be studied. Brothers must study how to increase their muscle mass without loads of whey and sugar to merely mold fat. If we engage in a sport, we must learn more of the sport and what its benefits are. We must also strengthen our bodies and avoid injury. All right? It's pretty self-explanatory until we get deeper. Number 7, the study of identity. Identity. The study of identity is the key to a successful knowledge of self, so that a title of God and earth and a righteous name are not merely fancy claims. We must work on noticing belief and letting it go with truth and become aware of the cliches we have labeled ourselves with and let them go. This is a lifelong study. All right. Number 8, pedagogy. Right? The science of teaching is also in the science of learning. Learning how to teach, we must also learn how we actually learn. What pitfalls we may be prey to become more evident the more familiar we are with many techniques. Also, learning to share sincerely is in the judgment of what ought to be shared. This is to be studied. In those couple of sentences, I said a lot. So that's why, when I email it to you, read through it, check it out. 9 is talent. We must engage in many disciplines to find and hone our talents. We may not even know which ones exist within us. It is through our talents that we will create sharings for the betterment of all. We must be aware of our talents with a humility that does not overrate them, yet does not underplay them as well. Okay? Pretty self-explanatory. We don't really think this way. Number 10 is love. The relationship of family, the creation of God and earth is the reality of all things. We must study whom we share our deepest intimacy with and not merely expect to be loved, but develop self into a person worthy of love. This is done with studying the ideas of intimacy, relationship, care, and sincerity. All right? So these seem self-explanatory, but they are not always overt in our mind. And that's why this is a very important plus lesson to me. Okay? Of course, there's other subjects, but these are 10 to absolutely have to deal with and to build on from there. All right? So, unless anyone has questions, we're pretty much done with this. Okay? 7930, you said no questioners will definitely reach out to Sunias in terms of certain plus degrees and good looks on that Jules. Heard Sean P use it in his lyric, but second and third hand. So appreciate 70s, 80s bombs, definitely crazy. Appreciate that. You know what I mean? Again, these plus lessons are for you. I've written them with the sensibility that this is how I live and how I remind things to myself, but I find that they are useful to everybody, and this is why I've shared them over the years. So definitely email me. You know what I'm saying? And again, this weekend, the Words Bomb plus lesson. There's other things to add. I'm gonna definitely add a conclusion, but I may be missing things. I will add them over time and try to update them and then mail them out to whoever got them already. You know, but I'm always updating them as I go along. So next week I may have an updated health protocol with training protocols on it, and it's a basic training protocol, something anybody could do. You know what I'm saying? It's stuff I teach to my kids, you know, and it's something that's easy for them to do, you know, and it doesn't take that much time, though, but it's an intense workout. That's the key. All right. And email me for any of these. All right. The Earth. Here's the thing. The Earth book list. The Earth book list is done. I just actually have researched the books, but I haven't read every single book. So no matter what, when I give it out, it's still with an asterisk. Until I read every book in it, it's not complete to me. It's not proper. But in the research I did, the books are very quality. Okay. But a lot of them I read. I just haven't read all of them though. When I do, then it'll be official. But stuff I build, I'll definitely send you what I have so far as it in being complete. So it's like the Earth book plus plus lesson, book list plus lesson, but it's got an asterisk because I haven't read every book. When I read every book, then I officially really recommend the books. You know what I mean? So for now, the asterisks will be on the books I didn't read fully yet, because a lot of them I'm in the middle of, right? And it's just I have so many books that I just go from what I need and what I need to learn about. So it takes a long time to read the book. But now that my youngest daughter is getting older, a lot of these books I would like to offer her. So I'm definitely going to dig into the list and start reading them. But I'll send you the list. I'll send it to you. You guys, just remind me of stuff because it's a lot of people I deal with and I make mistakes and I miss out things. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely. But until next time, all right, everybody. Email me, Sunias97. If you have my math, text me. You know what I'm saying? Text me. All right. Until next week. Peace.